Welcome to the Defenders of Business Value, the podcast that helps business owners unlock the value they've built and exit on their terms. I'm your host, Ed Meisegland, and for the last 30 years, I've been helping business owners prepare, grow, protect, and ultimately sell their businesses. Whether you're a business owner, a buyer, or an advisor guiding others through the process, if you want to make your last deal your best one, you are in the right place. So let's get started. Today's a special day because I get to hang out with my friend George Wellmer. I've known him for a number of years, and he is the founder of Tupelo. And Tupelo in our space is our deal flow and CRM platform, right? And so George and his brother Zach, they started way back in business valuations. And he saw what worked, what didn't work, what breaks, and what sellers don't know they're missing. And this platform called Tupelo, it helps advisors like me stay organized, move faster, and ultimately deliver more value to our sell-side clients. The reason George is on there is because he's talking to all the brokers. He's learning their processes behind it. And what are the tells, right? So what are the leading indicators that the seller is going to have a good experience with that particular broker? So I'm really stoked, and I'm positive you're going to get lots of value out of my conversation with George Wellmer from Tupelo SMB. So George, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Excited to be here, Ed. Excited to be here.
Man, I'll tell you, I have been waiting for this. So when we first met, all right, you had a company
years ago.
Right, yeah, a company called Iterate, right? So let's start there, because I'm assuming what you felt and what you found there was kind of the foundation of what you built now.
Yeah, I mean, this whole story goes back years and years and years ago. I was doing valuations direct to business owners by just hand. And I had a landing page, and business owners would come to me and I would do valuations for them. And then I'd present them their valuation, walk them through the report and things like that. And then one day my brother, Zach, saw me doing this stuff. And he's like, "What the heck are you doing?" And I was like, "This is how you do a valuation of a small business." And I walked him through it. And he's a tech guy, and his background was in computer science, and his PhD research was in AI. And he's like, "We can really grease the wheels on this. We can make this be so much easier and more accurate, quite frankly." So we started Iterate, and that took off. And we were working with business owners directly to start, accountants, fractional CFOs, things like that, people who were using valuation work as a KPI metric for their consulting wing of their business. And then we stumbled upon the SBA 7A program. It's a niche program out there for M&A acquisition loans. And part of their process is they require banks to use a third-party valuation company. And we plugged in there nicely. So we were working with about 50, 60, 70 of the top lenders out there. And these banks before us were waiting 2-3 weeks for evaluation. And this was delaying loans. And as everyone knows in the space, time kills deals. So our proposition to them was, hey, we'll turn around these valuations in 48 hours. We had a human in the loop to review everything. And we were producing high quality reports for them. I
mean, deals die for one of two reasons. One, valuation or value gap, and two, due diligence. What was the biggest thing you found? I mean, was it the dismal records, or was it seller? Was it inconsistent? Because I know just by the nature of the work we do, there's a lot of friction downstream, whether it be capital providers or due diligence providers or whomever is downstream. It's an income statement, but there's no uniformity, right?
Right. So the problems that the business owners were having who were doing valuations was slightly different than the banks. I mean, the banks, we got a full package. The underwriting was done. The brokers, SIM, CVR, deal book was completed, and they were handing that to us, and they were saying, does this valuation make sense? The problems we ran into there was it was during the pandemic, and a lot of the businesses we were valuing were peaking during the pandemic, things like liquor stores and things like that, where from a valuator standpoint, we were eventually bars are going to open back up, and this traffic is going to pivot. So those type of businesses were pretty hard to value, I would say. If we were working with business owners directly, the hardest thing that we had, and I think every broker will say this, is getting our hands on the financial statements. It's like pulling teeth, it seems like sometimes, from these business owners. I need 3 to 5 years of statements and interim statements from you to make sure that I can value the business accurately. And what would happen is the business owner would go to their bookkeeper or whoever, or their accountant, to ask for those statements. But there's a lot of delay, quite frankly, in that process. If we were working with an accountant doing like a valuation for their like consulting wing of their book, these were the best ones because they had the statements lined up and ready to go. I will say that there was a lot more work on the back end of those valuations because they know the numbers of the business. They can speak valuation a bit and they can speak accounting, right? So then they would ask a lot more questions than your typical business owner.
What do you see as the biggest misconception sellers have about the role of a broker?
I mean, I think fundamentally with this space, there's a pretty big misunderstanding of who business brokers actually are. Like we've spoken with a lot of business owners and a large percentage of those business owners don't even know what a business broker is. The rationale being here is a business owner is a domain expert in their industry, right? They know everything about their business. They know everything about the industry. But when it comes time to sell, if they have never sold a business before in the past, they don't know how to do that or who to speak with. And the closest comparison that they can often come up with is selling a house or real estate. And selling a business is completely different than selling real estate. I mean, one, it's a confidential sale process 9 times out of 10. When it comes to like working with a business broker directly, once the business owner knows what a business broker is, I think what business owners don't understand or misconception about this is a business broker sells a business. Each business broker does not sell their businesses the same way. The process that a business broker does to sell a business is pretty unique, I would say. I mean, there's some things that are standard of getting it up on the various different listing sites and marketplaces, and then trying to vet the buyers and then presenting those, relevant buyers to the business owners. Like that's kind of standard stuff out there. But operationally behind the scenes, how brokers are doing this is pretty unique. Like everything from, okay, we have a new listing. How are we going to let everyone in our prospective pool of buyers know that this business is for sale? Do we let them know before the listing goes public? Do we let them know after the listing is public? What's our process there? As buyers come in, how are we going to vet these buyers? Are we asking for just their phone number and giving them a call? Are we verifying financial statements from these buyers to make sure that they're qualified? Is there certain skill sets that we're looking for in these buyers? And are we asking these questions? So I think what a business owner should really do here with their debating between which broker to go to is ask them, how are you going to sell my business? What's that process going to look like?
It's really interesting because I think geography matters. I think the broker awareness is different depending on where you're at in the country. Did you find that too or no? And you could say no. I mean,
yeah, I would say more of like the size of the business rather than like geography.
I would have thought just the opposite, that, you got California and Texas and Florida for that matter, that there's concentrations of deal guys down there. I would have thought that there would be more volume coming out of there, and volume suggests awareness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of these states that you're referencing, Texas, California, Florida, there's also a lot of businesses there too.
Yeah. One of the things that you guys do is you help us move fast. Deal acceleration is a real thing, and it really helps being able to deliver marketing and information in order for people to make informed decisions quickly. That is really important, and I don't think sellers recognize that. So that's where I wanted to go, is talking a little bit about how Tupelo helps me, a deal guy, in deal acceleration for them.
Yeah, so I think I can break this down into like a few different like avenues here that we're helping brokers with. We're helping brokers help their clients sell their business, quite frankly. First one is driving inquiries. So the number of buyers who might be interested in your business, just from a volume standpoint. Tupelo has a marketplace in addition to a CRM. So we generate roughly a quarter of all inquiries that come from like the various different listing sites out there. So if you're debating whether to use a broker or not, a question you could ask them is, hey, Mr. Broker, Mrs. Broker, are you using Tupelo? If they are using Tupelo, they should be getting a fifth more inquiries than what another broker is, because that broker then has access to the marketplace.
Do you really think that, though? And I'm not trying to do a gotcha here, but buyers are everywhere, right? I think people are leveraging, because you got widgets, you got different tools that I can use. And I think that's what's creating it, as opposed to going out to third party. I think my email lists and my website are contributing to that, or is that not true?
So that's the second point that I wanted to get into here. So there's one of just like a volume perspective that we addressed. So number of inquiries, right? Which is fine. The next thing, getting deeper down into these, is targeting high quality buyers, right? And this is what we do a really good job at. So when a buyer inquires upon a business broker's listing, we enable the broker to send these smart forms to the buyer to collect all this information. It's called a buyer profile. So now this broker's database is virtually being automatically nurtured and like organized. So a broker now knows what industry a buyer is interested in, location, how much money they have, and their search criteria. So how big of a business they want to buy. So before a business even goes to market to a listing site, what brokers are doing is they're curating their database, they're filtering their database and sending out a buyer blast to these buyers to let them know, hey, we have a new listing in the market. So again, this is another thing that we do to help brokers target those high quality buyers as soon as possible.
Is there a third?
There's a third and a fourth.
Got it.
So the third is security. So a lot of these business owners, and you know this better than anyone else out there, is they want to run a confidential sale process. So inside of Tupelo, we have data rooms out there so business brokers can quickly obtain confidential documentation from the business owners. And then when it comes time to share that information with vetted buyers, they can do that all inside of Tupelo.
I don't think anybody recognizes the importance of deal rooms. Now, when you're passing information back and forth from your accountant, you're typically doing that. You have a share file or whatever. So I think that's really important to provide that confidence that the stuff that we're sharing is secure.
Yeah. I mean, if a broker is just asking for statements from like email and sending it to them, like that's a pretty good indication that they don't have a data room, and data room is going to be the most secure way to, protect your information. So that's a red flag. The last thing I want to talk about is like our AI, and I know it's like a pretty big buzzword right now. We help business brokers with marketing. Our AI does a lot of this for them. So this is coming up with the listing headlines, coming up with the listing descriptions, as well as coming up with these deal teasers. So often referred to as a confidential information memorandum. So our AI is actually trained on successfully sold companies in the past. So how the brokers are actually marketing your deal is effectively better because they're using Tupelo's AI.
I was not a Tupelo AI guy because it's just like, I got people that can do this until I did it. 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. We had the first draft of the sim right out of the gate. And so that was pretty powerful. And from a guy that's been in it as long as I have, kind of crystal balling the future, it's like, wow, I wonder what the heck this thing looks like from here.
We're only scratching the surface here, but we do a really good job at like building these confidential information memorandums, like deal teasers, quite frankly, deal books. And then like what the listings that go on these various listing sites. So the headline and the description, again, like we have AI that helps the brokers enhance these. So what we're looking for, like virtually what the AI has been trained on is like targeting keywords that have helped businesses sell in the past. So think of like recurring revenue and things like that generate a lot of inquiry from buyers.
Interesting. You keep talking about systematizing this industry, right? That this industry, the top brokers systematize their practice. Is there that much of a glaring difference between a systematized broker and somebody that doesn't use platforms and best-in-class type tools?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to understand is selling a business is not easy. It's very complex. In the sales cycle, both in terms of a business broker finding a business owner who wants to sell their business, and then once that business is listed, so they're working with the broker, finding a buyer for that business, this could be years and years in the making. And if you're cobbling something together, like that might work with if you're helping one business owner or two business owners a year. But if you're trying to have a larger practice, you're going to be talking to hundreds, if not thousands of sellers on an annual basis. And then you're going to need to nurture those relationships, track your interactions with them, quite frankly, notes you have on all these people. And then when it comes time for that business owner to sell their business, you want to be able to have all that information at your fingertips so you can help that business owner out right away. When a business owner wants to sell, you don't want to go back to square one of when you first met. And the same thing works with buyers. Buyers are going to be inquiring upon hundreds, if not thousands of listings out there. Tracking what buyers are interested in what listings, maybe why they said no, so you can better target them when you have the next listing that might meet their criteria.
We had a guy, and since we've been working with you, I mean, he's had like 20 at-bats looking at businesses, and finally we had to cut him off. It's like, we're no closer to helping you find a business. I mean, you can see in Tupelo just the inventory of what was reviewed. And does it help us become better advisors to both buy and sell side? Yeah, I think so. I think it shapes what that buyer is looking at. And that takes me, my next statement is, a lot of brokers differentiate themselves by the relationships that they have with the buyer. Who owns that buyer relationship? And I'm a supply side guy. I think you have great inventory, buyers will find you. But it seems as though the entire deal space is changing as far as who owns the buyer and the buyer relationship. What do you see?
So I'm always torn on this one a bit. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, a buyer is buying a business, whether they're buying it from you or they're buying it from, your competitor up the road. What's going to make the difference is the metrics on that business and does it meet the qualification for the buyer, right? That said, a good business broker is able to highlight the uniqueness of that business to that buyer, and understanding what the buyer wants is a huge advantage for the broker.
So we've got 3 different types of buyers. You got individual strategics and you got private equity. So private equity and strategics are fairly easy to figure out their motivation for buying. Those in the entrepreneurship through acquisition space or the ETA space, kind of a different animal, right? The buy box that they have seems to be a moving target. They can say, here's my investment thesis, and that's the new buzzword. And I'll bet you 90% of the time they won't buy. Do you see the world of deals pivoting to the buy side? Because there's so much, you look at, a couple of websites that just rolled out recently, just seems more buyer centric as opposed to seller centric. Does that make sense?
There's always been buy side brokers in this business. Yeah. And there's always been firms that specialize in buy side work out there. I think what we see, quite frankly, what the data tells us is the vast majority of buyers buying business out there, like the vast majority, is a single individual trying to buy a business from a seller who's a single person. So it's 1v1 here. And again, the vast majority of these buyers don't have a buy-side team working with them. The economics doesn't make sense in a lot of these transactions. If you're buying $1 million business, it's a large chunk of your capital as a buyer. Like, are you going to have enough money at the end of that to fork over and, 10%? Or whatever the number is to a buy side person who quote unquote bought you that deal when that deal was probably already on like a marketplace like Tupelo or Biz Buy Sell. The sell side makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm more bullish on sell side brokers, quite frankly, is because if you're a business owner, you want someone in your corner to help you sell that business, right? And if you're a buy side broker, who are you representing? Are you representing the seller or are you representing the buyer? Like there's a large mystery there. Now, if you look at like a private equity company or a strategic and you're going up market a bit, buy side work makes a lot of sense. Well, one, there's not that many, $25 million businesses out there. So you can put your criteria into one of these buy side brokers, which is effectively like an outsourced SDR, outsourced sales rep. They find you these businesses, they'll vet the businesses and present them to you, right?
No, you're right.
I see a world in that, but at the same time, that business who is being presented to the private equity could effectively hire a sell-side broker or a sell-side advisor at that same time.
And to your point, I think that what we see is those buyers that have taken it on the chin that they weren't fast enough, or that, everybody wants to buy an HVAC company now. And so all these individuals have read the articles, read Twitter, saw the LinkedIn, how sexy it is to own these boring businesses. And they're missing out because, private equity or strategics just have the ability and access to capital that they're not going to be able to compete. So we're seeing more buyers use the buy-side representation to cut through and find the off-market deals, right?
Yeah. One of the things that we see with like the ETA space, quite frankly, and I don't want to just label it as ETA, but people who are interested in buying businesses for the first time, they might have read like HBR's Guide to Buying a Small Business or Buy and Build, something like that. And a lot of the metrics that they cite in these books is you want a business with 500,000 in EBITDA at a minimum and is in a field that will create everlasting value, or, something like this, some of these buzzwords out there. Everyone's read this, right? So when they create their investment thesis, they're regurgitating what they read in these like articles or courses that they've taken. But what a broker is seeing is like, okay, great. I'm getting the same email from a different person 20 times a week, right? And then if I send that person a buyer profile, they're filling out something that's completely different. like expectations is completely, their expectations when they come into the industry are different than what reality is. And then you see these buyers adjusting their qualifications over time when they realize like, if this really is my strike zone, I don't have that many businesses to pick, one, and two, they're a lot more expensive than I originally thought because private equity is now diving down into that lower price range.
Yeah, no, you're right. This is going to come across bad, and I don't mean it to sound this bad, but it sounds like the cool thing to do. I'm looking at deals. I'm looking at I'm going to leave my company. I'm going to control my destiny and stuff like that. Until you put that person's feet to the fire, and you got to start talking about a checkbook. Or I'm dating myself. You start talking about how much you're going to have to invest and it's a different animal.
You're going to be signing a PG too.
yeah, that personal guarantee is so, and what we're finding, I think we're obligated and we have a fiduciary responsibility to the seller to weed those people out. They may be competent, but are they the right buyer? And while it's not our choice, but it's operations, earnings, and strength of the buyer. That gets those across the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at like the pool of business owners right now, a lot of them started their business by getting their hands dirty, right? And so in your example of HVAC, they were probably the tech that was doing this and they grew their practice, right? And if you come in from the outside and you want to buy one of these businesses, if you've never were in HVAC, never fixed an air conditioning unit or anything like that, like that's going to be a hard thing for you to step into.
It's hard to connect with the people that are in the space, your employees, that especially if you've never swung a hammer or you don't know the mechanics. You may know spreadsheets and forecasts and so on and so forth, but I think being able to connect with the people that have built that seller's wealth, I think that's really important. And again, I think that too often the integration, the post-sale, the day 1 to 30 after the close is probably the most important part.
Yeah, and not to say it's not impossible. There's plenty of people that have gone from like desk jobs to, owning small businesses in the past. I just think the people that their expectations are like they're going to get in day one and they're going to get their hands dirty. And if they're buying one of these businesses, they're going to learn the business inside and out from the ground up. It's not, I'm going to institute some like AI thing to record these conversations, to book meetings and, book sales calls, things like that.
Speaking of AI, so how do you see AI and automation shaping the marketplace? What do you see and what's your crystal ball say on this?
Yeah, so I think like fundamentally like what's happened in the past is brokers who want to grow their practice have been able to take on 10, 15 listings at a time. Some really aggressive brokers have taken on 40 plus businesses, but they're working 24/7 around the clock trying to sell these businesses. What we're seeing is with the advancements of technology and automations and AI, quite frankly, brokers can sell more listings and provide the same level of service. So one of the things that we see out there is a broker who might sell like 4 listings will say, you're like the only one of the few businesses that I'm working with right now. Like I'm providing this white glove service, which has historically been true. But brokers who are using systems and are using technology are able to provide that same service because they're not inundated with manual tasks like sending NDAs manually or talking to buyers who will never buy this business in a million years. So technology is helping free up brokers' time so they can spend their time on more higher dollar value activities.
We talked a little bit about, from a marketing standpoint, the AI is working well. I'm assuming AI and the work you guys did with Iterate, I'm certain valuations are only going to continue to improve. You didn't even share that you have the ability to spread the financial statements within the system. You got development of some marketing material. You got the NDAs. You got the spreading of the financials. So you have to have some confidence in all of the technology that, number one, it's right. But I'm just kind of curious to know, where does technology stop? Because I'm a tech nerd. I love all this stuff. I just want to know where it stops and the broker begins again.
That's a good question. We're not trying to like eliminate the brokers, because like at the end of the day, that human interaction, the relationships that are built, that's what's going to get the deal done. What we're trying to do is give the broker more cracks at having those interactions, more at bats, quite frankly. So we have AI to spread the financial statements. We have AI to do a first pass evaluation. We have AI to build the marketing materials. We have the marketplace that you can post it on, sending the NDAs when a buyer comes in. There's a lot more room of growth here. Like then we can go down some avenues where like maybe there's like an AI agent you have that's calling these buyers after they sign the NDA to like see if they actually have these funds. Maybe there's integration of like a plaid so you can verify the prospective buyers' funds when they come in at whatever period of time. There's still like a lot of room. I know you're bullish and a lot of people are bullish on using AI to interact with the data rooms. That's something that we talked heavily about internally. So a buyer who's reviewing documentation that were shared with them from the broker could virtually chat with the documents to be like, why did revenue increase 20% last year? And then based on the broker's write-up, it would come up with an answer for them.
I'm hiring younger people because I really believe, like when I got into it, the way you learn this is because of the senior guys above you. You learn through osmosis. Well, now you can learn the mechanics in a million different ways, right? So the younger guys, this isn't foreign at all. The 30-year-olds have no problem interacting with AI. So I'm curious to know, are we facilitating more one-man shops because the multi-vertical, services within the brokerage, it can be replaced easily? You know what I mean?
The vast majority of brokers out there operate very independently. So they could be part of a larger organization or a larger office, but they're not interacting on a daily basis with the broader team. So effectively, most brokers out there are a one-man shop, but sole proprietor, quite frankly. Could that change in the future? Potentially. I do see a lot more practices providing more and more value, maybe helping out with lead sourcing for that practitioner or having a back office to do a lot of this AI work that we talked about of building marketing material and getting the listings up on the various different sites out there. But a lot of business brokers right now already operate very, very independently.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question. What's a tell? How do you sniff out a bad broker? Have you seen anything that can help the business owners that are listening say, you know what, this guy's likely a bum?
I think like there's a lot of like different ways you can dive into here of like questions you should be asking that broker of the vet if they're a good broker. So like some of the ones that are out there is like, when was your last closing? How long was that business on the market? Have you sold a business similar to mine? Can I speak with one of your previous clients? And then like we talked about this earlier too, like what's your plan to sell my business? How are you going to find buyers for this business? How are you going to market this business? How are you going to vet those buyers to make sure that they meet the criteria that I'm setting forth for you?
Candidly, that has not changed. I've been at it 34 years, and that's always been the standard. And as you know, I mean, our practice is probably about 90% referral based. And I don't want to say I'm trying to change it, but I'm really trying to change that. It's great to have referrals, but at the same time, I think the more we're able to serve more people, the better our process is, and that's where you guys came in, and it's really working well. What have you learned about broker behavior, good or bad, but most sellers never, ever see, but can dramatically affect their deal?
Yeah, so I think like understanding an office's practices is always interesting. Like coming into this space, I would have thought it would have been a lot more uniform, but it is pretty unique, I would say. So like take, for example, of like how data is being shared internally in an own practice. There's business brokers out there, so companies out there that don't share data internally. So one broker can't see another person's buyers. So that's an interesting thing that we've had to deal with. Another thing that we come across is like inquiry routing. So who owns that relationship with the prospective buyer? So if an inquiry comes in from one of these listing sites out there, one of these marketplaces, what business broker is receiving that inquiry? Is it the person who brought that listing to market? Is it a broker who talked to that buyer in the past? Or maybe it's just like an up system, kind of like a dealership, like who's receiving this? And you've had to be pretty flexible there. And then in terms of like getting a listing to market, is the broker doing the valuation? Are they outsourcing it? Are they building marketing material? Are they outsourcing it? It's pretty unique at how brokers are doing their whole entire process here.
Interesting. So our position was always, we want you to have a practice within a practice, right? And we wanted to serve you and develop you as a practitioner, and we'll provide oversight and support and so on and so forth. But that may have worked in the late 90s and early 2000s. That doesn't work anymore. And I think those legacy brokerages have to make that pivot where collaboration is a lot more effective in doing deals. And again, We certainly haven't broken the code, but we're getting a lot closer, I think.
Yeah, one of the big things that we see is changing in the industry is how business brokers are structured. So again, like highlighting the vast majority of business brokers who are structured now are very independent, right? So even if they're part of a 10-person team, which it would be a larger business broker operation than 10-person team, each broker that's on that team operates very independently. What we're seeing more and more practices go to is more of like a team approach. So there might be a marketing department, there might be a valuation department, there might be account managers, things like that, where information is being shared. People have responsibility for different aspects of the deal. And what this is doing is helping these brokerage firms get in front of more business owners. I think that because they're working as a team, quite frankly, and people's like full-time responsibility might just be for marketing, right? When if you look at traditional firms, that broker is responsible for marketing their service. That broker is responsible for valuations, building marketing materials, and then talking to buyers, right? So they're stretched pretty thin, quite frankly.
I mean, that's the nature of the business. I mean, the hard part is when you sell a house, that was one of your analogies early on. There's probably about a 90% plus chance you're going to sell that house, right? There's so many more moving parts that have to be vetted and valued and sold, here when you're dealing with a business. But to your point, you're being able to serve more business owners means that you're facilitating the awareness that there's a service, right? Somebody now knows that there's somebody out there that can help.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's a big thing here, like when you're going to sell your business, like understanding like what you can expect is a huge, huge value that brokers provide. Like you were saying, like the success rate of selling companies, like you hear out there, like 80% of businesses that go to market never sell. You talk about how long it takes to sell a business, 9 to 14 months on average. So it's going to take a while. Your success rate is not always that high, and it's going to take a lot of work too.
That whole that 80% of companies don't sell. I mean, if you look at the aggregate, I mean, that's true. Let's just say you rip up retail and hospitality. I'll bet you it goes up substantially. You know what I mean?
I think size too.
Yeah, so you're right.
Yeah, size is a big thing too. Again, like that's another like misconception out there. Like what's the business worth, right? Understanding the valuation of your business is something that business owners don't really think about until it comes time to sell.
I'm super stoked that you're sharing more data. And I think the more that you're starting to work with more and more brokers, I think you're going to see that there's more data. And I think sellers are warming up to more data in their decision making. That's just my take. We're coming to the end, but I wanted to ask about why hire a broker at all? And what do you wish that, like as an industry, the brokers would do differently?
Yeah. So why hire a broker? I mean, one, you don't know what you're getting into when you're selling your business because oftentimes you never sold a business before in the past. And this is most likely going to be the largest financial transaction of your life. Yes, brokers are expensive. They are not cheap. Roughly, let's say 10% of the sale price will go to the broker. But what you're gaining there is someone who has done this before for a living and can help navigate you through this process. Every complex sale out there has someone in the loop, the vast majority of times, real estate. Even if you're buying a car right now, there's people that are at the dealership that'll help point you in the right direction. And your business is so much more expensive than many of these transactions, so it makes sense to have one of these brokers in the space. I think oftentimes people underestimate the amount of work it takes to sell a business. So like a good listing that we see on like our marketplace could generate 200 inquiries in 24 hours. Without systems in place, it's going to be tough to vet all these prospective buyers that are coming in to make sure that they're qualified, talking to them and things like that. A broker is going to do that. Then when it comes time to negotiating the finer points of the business, a broker has done this plenty of times in the past where they're able to articulate why the business is valued at what it is. Now, that said, if you want to sell the business yourself, I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible for you to do that. You just have to be ready that it's going to take some work. And there's going to be some situations that you're going to have to navigate that you've never gone through before in the past.
Well, the funny thing is that, a lot of brokers, that the best seller is the one that just got done paying a bunch of tuition because they sat for 6 months and was working with a buyer that never ended up transacting. Because now that they know just the challenges that you fight. But again, I do believe that the business owner deserves a broker that will shepherd the deal, right? I got new guys here that I've been training, and we talk about it in businesses, and I'm talking about it in net worths. Like, this is somebody's entire life you're messing with. This is serious. This isn't like I'm selling a house and, all right, I don't sell the house and that's a bummer and so on and so forth. Chances are this is someone's entire life work, and we should behave as a profession like that. That's who we're serving, and that's what we're doing, not just because we're creating liquidity for that seller, but this is a really big deal, and we need to behave in that manner. And I think that when brokers and the profession approach it more so than a commodity, I think you turn the profession on its head, and now all of a sudden it's like, all right, now I'm a superhero. Now I'm a defender of business value,
I totally agree with you, but I think you can also agree there's some business owners out there that'll probably never sell with a business broker out there.
Oh, sure. 100%. Yeah. And that's okay. You know what? Like I said, we're seeing more advisory work than we ever have in our 44 years. More people that are saying, look, I don't want to say fractional exit services, but that's what it is. It's, hey, I'm jammed up. Can you unjam me? All right, we'll do it. And again, God bless them if they can do it. Unfortunately, some of the situation we've gotten into, we've had to unwind a little bit, because if you just would have had a consultation, you would have known not to do what you did. But again, back to awareness. Someone raises their hand and says, I want to talk. That now all of a sudden, they're on the drip campaign. They're getting inundated with, now's a great time to sell. Now's a great time to sell. And I think that turns a lot of sellers off, because from the emotional side, they're trying to figure out, do I really want it? This is all I've ever done. Do I really want to sell this thing? And
it's a catch-22, because a lot of brokers get their leads, like, yes, from referrals is primarily number one, but two is because they were there. And how are you there if you're not reaching out to the business owners directly?
No, you know what? Good counterpoint. I've revert back to some of the exit planning services that I've done, where it's, are you financially ready? Is the business ready? Are you emotionally ready? Okay, well, all those ingredients have to play into a successful sale. And you're right. It depends at what time, the timing for which of those three that you're showing up at. So I get it.
Yeah, I think another tough thing with the industry is marketing for business brokers has typically been pretty direct with, we have buyers that'll buy your business, or now is a great time to sell your business, like you were saying too. When we see what's working from a marketing standpoint is more of educational based, oh, we just had an HVAC company sell at 5.25x because of this, this, and this, and this. If you want to build a great HVAC business to successfully sell, these are the 5 things that you should be doing. So more of case studies and trying to help that business owner out build a great business is what's working better, quite frankly, I think, in marketing.
Yeah. And candidly, we've never gone wrong sharing information ever. Even, holding it in because you think you've got something special. It's really not. It's back to the same old thing. Are you able to execute on the things you say you can do? And I'm happy to share with you. And if you think you can do it better, have at it. I think that's part of why we've been around for 40 years is because, we've been generous with we'll let you know when we got to turn the meter on. All right, so your episode, I think 124. And for 124 episodes, I've asked the same question. If you had one piece of advice to give to our listeners, now our listeners are sellers, buyers, and their advisors, what would have the most immediate impact on their business?
So let's start with sellers here. I think the best thing, and this is a cliche in the industry, is really clean up your accounting. Accounting's not that expensive. So understanding where you're at as a business that you can measure, you can manage, is a huge thing to set you apart from not only your competitors, but also to prepare yourself for the eventual exit of your business. Now, this could be 1 year away. This could be 20 years away. Having good books will just make your life so much better. The other thing that I tell business owners all the time is to get a valuation of your business done annually. The last thing that you want to do is come time to sell your business and realize there's no value here. So having those expectations early on is better. And quite frankly, it allows you to change certain aspects of your business. The last thing there, if you're a business owner, if you're considering selling, whether it's a year away or again, 10 years away, talk to somebody early. You don't know what you don't know. So it doesn't hurt to talk to somebody in the space to help shed some light on what that process might look like. What are multiples happening in the industry that you could expect? How are buyers interacting with these businesses? Things like that. There's a million different things you could learn by just talking to someone who's an expert in that SMB, small and medium-sized business, M&A space. In terms of a buyer, what I give advice to buyers is understand what the process looks like. We see a lot of buyers that come into the space that have these interesting investment theses that'll be quickly realigned to what the market actually has in supply versus like a pipe dream. If you're a banker or a private equity, the financial statements that you're generally used to dealing with are going to be a lot higher of a quality than what you're going to be dealing with when you're dealing with a small or medium-sized business. So understand you're going to be looking at QuickBooks printout and tax returns, not audited statements. There is a level of good faith in guessing when you're doing this. Quite frankly, like all these brokers out there are not auditing the numbers that they're presenting. Like, they're not accountants. They can only do so good of a job with the information that there's presented to them.
What's the best way to connect with you?
You can go to my website, tupelosmb.com. So the best way to reach out to me, you can do it through our social media channels, whether it's X, LinkedIn, YouTube. We started producing a lot more YouTube videos. You can email me at george@tupelosmb.com. Or you can go to tupelosmb.com and then connect with us. We have a bunch of different newsletters that we're running. We have Broker Alchemy that's catered to M&A advisors, business brokers. We have other newsletters that target specific industries like SMB Current, targets manufacturing, accounting, construction workers, things like that, where we talk about, valuation multiples that we're seeing, best practices on how to grow your practice, AI tools that we're seeing in the space a lot. So we're trying to just provide value out there. If a business owner ever wants to consider selling their business, if they want to tap into Tupelo's pool of business brokers, we're pretty good at pointing business owners in the right direction to help them ensure that they find the best broker possible to sell their business.
Right on. Well, George, man, as always, it's been fun in person and it's been fun on the podcast. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate the friendship and I appreciate all the insights because you've really helped our practice. So thanks so much for being with us.
Until next time.
Right on. Thanks for listening to the Defenders of Business Value. If today's episode helped you think differently about building or selling a business, follow the show so you don't miss what's next. And if you want to become a more informed, confident owner, the one who knows how to grow, protect, and eventually exit at maximum value, subscribe to my newsletter. The link is in the show notes. And if you're ready to talk about your next deal, connect with me on LinkedIn. So until next time, we'll see you soon.